Guys, welcome to our podcast, the Limitless podcast, where everything is conversations about everything that is limitless. I don't know, I just made that up on the spot. But with me is the usual gang. It's the team. It's Christina Tindale. Welcome, Christina.
Thanks, Zoghi.
How are you?
It's good to. I'm good. I was actually just thinking about how I love that you just trust me to bring a question to you completely unknown. You have no idea what we're gonna talk about today, do you?
I love that. Like, it's my favorite. I have no idea. I mean, you could really put me on the spot, but that's the great thing. It's like when you're on the spot, you've got a decision to make. You can go to your head or you can drop into your heart. And I love that. It's like, it's why I love getting up on stage, and speaking, because it forces me to be on the spot. And in that moment, I can backtrack and climb into my head somewhere and, look for things to talk about and of course, everything there is riddled with reason, and say this because then people will approve, say this because they'll like, say this because they'll buy. All reasons, right? Or I could just stop, take a breath, empty my mind, which is basically just leave my mind, leave it where it is, and just drop into my heart. And then, for most people, that's like, oh my God, that would be so scary. But you need to trust and back yourself. So yeah, that's why I love it. It's show up and Christina's, got a question. And even if it wasn't you, but most people go, well, you trust Christina, she's your facilitator, she's one of your team members. And no, I have, when I've done other podcasts and they said, do you want us to send the questions? I'm like, no, thank you. I don't need to know. I prefer not to know. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that experience of watching you do that on stage with people you've just met as well, put their hand up in the audience and ask all kinds of questions. But yeah, it's I love that about this podcast though, and it's interesting you said about the heart and talking about being on stage, because where my question comes from today is actually, having just recently experienced you being back on stage over the last year when you were, on your tour, and the recording that we now have online of Limitless. In that particular talk, I feel like you've always talked about deservingness, but in this particular talk, like, there is something around you really clarifying how this work is all about deservingness. And I wanted to know, like, in your journey, was there like a time where you realized that for yourself, or is it something that you realized through working with clients, that it was really came down to your deservingness? And if you could just share more about that.
Well, thank you for the question. And it's a really good one, Christina. First of all, I don't think deservingness is limited to my work or this work. And by this work, we're talking about self-realization versus self-help or self-development. It's deservingness. What I talk about when it comes to coaching a client, or from start, they start with me and they want to work with me. I believe that their life and how their life shows up for them, and that's what that means is it's their circumstances and the people that are showing up in their life has got to do with their level of deservingness. And for me, when I take on a coaching client, I kind of get a gauge of where they're at, and I'm gauging not their life circumstances, not what's going on. I'm having problems with my relationship. I'm having problems with my health. I'm having problems with money. I'm having problems with my career. I'm not looking at that, although they're going to tell me about that. What I'm looking at is I'm feeling their level of deservingness, because it's impossible for you to be like really, really deserving and for you to put up and 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 live with some of those circumstances. And it's I'm not saying you would necessarily. This is not just limited to you would do something about it, but also someone like that or circumstances like that won't necessarily come into your life. It becomes like oil and water. So I believe that life is happening for us, not to us. And it's happening for us to teach us about who we truly are. And the whole point of that is for you to grow or expand your deservingness. It's as you deserve, your reality, the way I like to describe it, is your reality bends around your deservingness. When you have a lack of deservingness, you bend around your reality. And again, reality is the people in your life and how they show up and how they treat you. It's your circumstances. It's your relationship you're having with yourself, how you treat yourself, whether that's mental or physical, your health, all of that. So when you have a lack of deservingness, what happens is that you then bend around your reality. In other words, you're chasing your reality in order to feel more deserving. So you're looking for more people to love you. Now, that may come in a form of getting recognition, because what do you feel when you have recognition? That may come in the form of getting more people to accept you. You feel more loved. That might come in the form of getting more people to approve of you, approve of what you're saying, approve of what you believe in. And again, that's a form of love. So we go and chase people or circumstances in our life to make us feel more deserving. So that could even be build a bank balance or build our status, and as we build our status, we feel like I am more deserving. But that's not true deserving, because my friend, that can easily disappear. And it has for many people. Because I catch those people when their flaw disappears from their fucking reality. That's when they come to me and they go, I feel like there's something more. And by the flaw disappearing, you lost a loved one. A loved one left you, a relationship breakup. You lost lots of money. You lost your wealth. Or you've gained wealth, but you find no meaning or purpose in it. And it's like, well, is that it? And that's when, unfortunately, that's when people get drawn to come and speak to me. So it's fortunately, I know how to deal with that. Fortunately, I know how to assist them with that. And the way I assist them is get them to bring their attention back to themselves, and I help them find their real deservingness. Because the deservingness that you got outside of you from your story is temporary. It will never last. It's momentarily there. And you go, oh, I feel I deserve because my boss gave me recognition. It doesn't last, right? And furthermore to that, and I can talk more about this, but again, this is where I would recommend someone just go and do my program, the Limitless program, because it's all in there, and I'm getting diverted right now by talking about it. But with recognition, it's with anything in our world, in our reality, it's duality. Of everything, there's two. If there's an in, there's an out. There's a right, there's a wrong. There's a good, there's bad. There's love, there's fear. There's peace, there's war. Of everything, there's two. So even if you do get recognition, the reason it doesn't last is because then what comes with that recognition is an absence of recognition. If someone else is not recognizing you, maybe it's yourself, maybe it's your partner, maybe somewhere else, it will go missing. You can never keep it. I know that for certain. It's if you understand and grasp the work that I teach, the work that's not forget about what I teach. It's quantum physics. It's science. Okay? So, so of course, when you're bending around your reality, you're looking for someone, my favorite one is a relationship. You're looking for someone in a relationship to come and make you feel loved so you feel deserving. But then the problem with that, you might go, well, what's the problem with that? If somebody loves me and my deservingness goes up, that's amazing. The problem with that is that you then place expectation on that relationship or that individual in that relationship to keep loving you or keep making you feel like you deserve. But you don't really deserve. And I can guarantee you, at some point, the way they love you may shift. The way they may appreciate you may change. And then you will go, oh, you've changed. And what you're saying is, you don't love me the way you used to. And what you're saying is, you don't love me the way I need you to. What you're saying is, you don't love me the way I expected you to. An expectation comes because of a lack of deservingness that you feel within yourself. Because if you had true deservingness, you're not in that relationship for the other person to bring you a feeling of deservingness. You're in that relationship for the love of it, for the joy of it, rather than the need of it. You know, most people think we want to find the one because when I'm with the one, we feel complete. What I do is teach people to find themselves. And when they find themselves, they find completeness in themselves. Now they're free to be in that relationship without placing their expectations on the other person to love them. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have standards. You know, there's a difference between expectations and standards. You have a level of standard, and again, different topic here. I'm trying to stay on mark here. So there is a difference, but it's when you find yourself and you find yourself as the one, you show up in the relationship without the expectation of the person to love you in a certain way. You know, sure, you may appreciate the way they love you, right? You might have, that's probably the word, you may appreciate, but you don't have expectation for them to love you that way, because if they change the way they loved you, if they change the way they express their love for you, it doesn't change your deservingness because you found your deservingness within yourself. So, I mean, that's just an example relationship. Most people can relate to that. It's the same for your career. It's the same for your work. It's the same for finances, how money shows up in your life. It's exactly the same. So again, I'm going to say that when you have a lack of deservingness, you then are bending around your reality, your story, and you are looking to manipulate somebody or circumstances or results or outcomes in your life. You're looking to manipulate them to make you feel deserving because you don't deserve. It will never last. Now, the opposite is what I do and how I work with people. How I work with people is the same way Michelangelo used to sculpt his masterpieces. Now, the thing about Michelangelo is that he would say that he would get a block of marble and he would see his masterpiece. He would see what he was, the sculpture that he was sculpting, if you like, he would see it in the block of marble because it already existed in the block of marble. So then, rather than try to build that sculpture, what he would do is just chisel away and remove the pieces that no longer belong there. In other words, you're just removing the pieces that don't belong there. When you're removing the pieces that belong there, bang, there's your work of art. Well, I believe that every single one of us has a true, natural, genuine deservingness. Because if you didn't, you wouldn't be born. Do you know the odds the fucking odds of you being born and existing, like, I don't have the science for it. I wish I had the stats right now. But the odds of you actually being here and bringing yourself into this body, the odds of you being born, right, is so small. But you're here. So for me, that shows that, like, if you didn't have that deservingness, you would never have been born. So I believe that every single one of us that is born into this world has that deservingness within us. And of course, unfortunately, what happens is as we grow up, there's things that happen and we put layers and layers around that deservingness. And it becomes like a big block of marble. And those layers are, somebody said something to you when you're young, your father raised his voice, somebody said to you at school, you're never going to become something, whatever it is. And some people have bigger layers, I understand. But the deservingness is still there, right? So then you're now in this block of marble. So when I work with people, I'm helping them realize that deservingness. I'm getting people to self-realize who they are. And if you realize who you are, that deservingness is there. It's your true essence. It's who you truly are. So all I'm doing when I'm working with a client is removing what no longer belongs there. So we're just removing the pieces. We're not trying to fix, improve, change, or get rid of something in their story in order for them to feel more deserving. I'm not trying to get them to bend around the story. I'm bringing their attention back within themselves. And as they begin to recognize and realize and have a deeper experience of themselves, naturally, they're removing the pieces that no longer belong there. So to me, when I'm coaching someone, I'm starting here, wherever here is for them, and it's like, let's say they have a deservingness 2 out of 10, right? Yes, they might have a lot of story because they've been bending around the story and there's, if you look at their story, you're like, wow, your deservingness 2 out of 10, but you've accomplished so much in your story, but you've made so much wealth, but again, that deservingness doesn't change. It changes momentarily where they think, oh, I've got status, I've got money, the moment they're by themselves and they stop, they feel like something's missing, something's not whole, something's not complete. So my work with people is, they start here, let's say they're 2 out of 10, and I help them get to a point of, let's say 8, 9, let's say 10. I mean, the world's your oyster by then, okay? And as they realize their deservingness, as they expand their own deservingness, their story begins to change. Their story, and that's what I mean by their story bends around them. So, self-love comes up quite often, and people say, well, it's really important for us to self-love. And of course it is. Of course, we need to nurture ourselves, and we need to self-love. And there's so many methods that we could do that, and so many different practices. Some people might use breath work. Some people might sit in front of the mirror and look at themselves. Sometimes people will be writing. There's so many different methods. And again, I'm not disregarding that. I totally am on board, and it's important for us to self-love. But again, I come through the back door when I'm working with my clients, Christina. The way I work with my client, and that sounds weird in the back door, but the back door is where no one else is really looking at. Because if you got to realize who you are, if you asked yourself, because when you say, I need to self-love, you're telling yourself you're not loved. And so many people are like, well, that's true. I don't feel loved. So I need to self-love. That's my healing. And I get it. Okay? But what you're doing is you're recognizing that you are not loved. The other door, the other entry, is for you to actually realize who you are and to self-realize and to find that deservingness that is it's genuine, it's organic, it's innate. You were born with it. And when you realize that deservingness is love.
Yeah.
Is love itself. And then, and only someone who's worked with me, they'll get to realize what I'm talking about here. But when you realize that part of yourself, why would you need to love yourself? And so again, someone might listen to me and go, well, what do you mean? We don't need to love ourselves? Why would love require to love itself? Like, put that in your pipe and smoke it for a little while. And what I mean by that, I mean, just ponder and reflect on what I just said. Why would love need to love itself? Well, of course it doesn't. Because love itself doesn't need to love itself because it is loved. It not only is it loved, it is love. That deservingness, that essence of who we are is love. Right? And when someone realizes that, like, they're not sitting there with any practice or tool or technique trying to find love for themselves, or furthermore, the big one, they're not looking to get the story. They're not bending around the story, trying to find somebody just to love them. Now, again, I want to say, I understand it's important because without love, we wouldn't be here. But motherfuckers, without love, you wouldn't have been born. Without a deservingness, you wouldn't even. So you have that. But it's like Michelangelo. That is in the big block of marble. You just need to realize that. And you realize that the pieces that no longer belong there disappear. Without realizing that, we're trying to do what, look, as Michelangelo says, he's not trying to design the sculpture. Why? Because it already exists. It's already there. It's just in that block of marble. And he's telling people, can you see it? It's in the block of marble. Of course, no one else can see it. I see it. I see people's deservingness. But I also see people's need to be loved. I see that and I recognize that. And of course, I'm not, I just want to make sure I'm not disregarding that. We all have the need to be loved. But you just go back to the other entry door and actually realize the love of who you truly are, like that deservingness that resides in your own soul, that is innate. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. So yeah, for me, Christina, it is all about deservingness. Like, someone will tell me their story, and they'll tell me their story because they want me to help fix, improve, change, or get rid of something in the story that is making them feel undeserving. And I'm like, well, why don't we just go find your deservingness that is not related to the story, that is innate, that's in the block of marble. Then you're free completely. Free to be yourself. You're not concerned about what someone's going to think, whether they accept you or reject you, whether you fail or not. Like that, those will become little concerns for you. Why? Because you found your own deservingness. And your deservingness is not based on what you've accomplished. It's not based on the story. That's what's real.
Yeah. Well, when you were sharing earlier about someone who's finding their deservingness, like in what they do, for example, like if that gets taken away, they don't feel that deservingness anymore. And the deservingness that you're talking about, like, it cannot be taken away from you, no matter what.
That's right. It's yours once you find it, it's yours forever. And as long as you keep coming from that space and not get distracted, because things can distract us, you know. And by things distracting us, I mean, like, I call it the shiny diamond. You know, suddenly something you've never accomplished before, you know, gets offered, and there's this shiny diamond, it's sparkling. But if you do this, and it's something that you don't want to do, if you do this, then we will give you millions of dollars, or we will grow your Instagram. I don't know, whatever it is, something you've never had. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll go and do that. And you can disconnect from your own deservingness, because some sparkly diamond just for a moment got your attention. And then you come back outside, and your attention, and when I say come back outside, we always live outside, you know, but you can be, you know, sitting with who you are and bring your attention out, or you can have your attention completely outside and not be sitting with who you are. You know, it's very different. So it sounds a bit woo-woo, but
well, no, but I mean, speaking of sitting with who you really are, like, I feel like we've left some really powerful questions with our podcast audience over the last few episodes, you know, because a couple episodes ago I had asked you about your journey of, like, you know, how come you came to contemplate infinity and start to ask yourself those big questions. And I feel like you've dropped one that's really profound in this episode as well, as like, why would love need to love itself? And so, you know, people walk around with a t-shirt on that says, I am love. Like it's a thing. It's, you know, people like, I know that I'm love, but like, have you really sat with that? Like, to the deepest core of your being, not just like this, it's a nice thing. And so when you're saying that, like, I feel like that is something people could maybe take away, another one of those questions to sit with.
Well, that's a really interesting thing. And you're right, you know, it's on t-shirts, it's on bumper bars, it's on billboards, you know, you are love, or, you know, all that. Like, and people believe that, you know, their natural essence, or the, you know, somewhere deep within them that they are love. But the question is, yeah, and this is primarily where my work becomes, what's the word? Not tangible, practical. The question is, can you live that? Like, can you bring that awareness, that knowing, that direct experience into your everyday living? Into the relationship that you have with yourself emotionally, the relationship you have with yourself physically, the relationship you have with money, the relationship you have with your career, the relationship you have with your kids, with your family, the relationship you have with your health. Like, because to me, everything is a relationship. And if you truly have grasped that, not mentally, and that's the challenge there. If we grasp it mentally, like, I am love and I believe that and I know that, it's not enough. You need to drop that to a place where you not only know that, but you become that. You know, so, you know, it's about, and from that place, you're going to notice that you're going to be able to live what you know. You'll be able to live it in your life, and it'll be reflected in your life. You know, so for example, the story begins to match who you are. So it's not like you're sitting there and being all zen and meditating and, you know, whatever it is that you believe in, you honor and all that kind of stuff. And then you go into your everyday life and you manipulate and you steal, or, you know, you like push rather than allow it to happen. Like, you know, like, it's, the story sometimes doesn't match what somebody believes. And the reason is because they believe it mentally. You can't believe, it's not a mental application. It's you need to be that, not just know that. It's far deeper. So the question comes down to, and this is what I always ask my clients, because there's so many people who come across, I speak on stage and people come to me and they go, I know what you're saying is true. I know it. I've known it my whole life. I know it. And then I just always say, well, because that's my favorite. I know this stuff. I know, like it's suddenly they're trying to raise themselves up and go, I know this. And I appreciate that. And I want to raise everybody up, right? But the question is, can you live it? Because that was my drive, because I knew this stuff too, but I couldn't live it. And then I would have a story of why I couldn't live it. Oh, well, I don't have any money. Oh, well, I don't have any experience. Oh, well, I don't know the right people. Oh, well, I failed at high school. Oh, I hate, I failed in my business. And oh, well, I have this trauma. So that's why you can't live it? I mean, there's a part of you that's infinite, that's limitless, that's full deserving. You think that whatever it is that you think is stopping, you think that's going to stop you? You can't cage a free mind. You cannot imprison a mind that is free. A mind that is deserving. You cannot imprison that soul. And by mind, just to be clear, I'm not talking about your mental mind. I'm talking about your heart. The mind that connects all as one. I'm not talking about the drop in the ocean, I'm talking about the entire ocean.
Yeah.
Just to be clear about when I use the word mind. So yeah, there you have it, Christina. There you have, why I believe it's all about your deservingness. Your deservingness will change your confidence, will change your ability to be in the flow. It will change your ability to come up with ideas, the right people that you meet. The story bends around your deservingness. Have you ever noticed that for someone, it's just things are just happening for them? I mean, without pushing and manipulating. Like it's just they meet the right person, they go there, and then they meet the next person, or the right idea drops in, and blah 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 blah. Right? And sometimes we hear those stories and we think to ourselves, oh well, they got lucky. No, they would have gone through the whole process of life is happening for you, because we never hear. Whenever we hear some successful news or success or stories about people, we're just like, wow, they got lucky. They probably had 5, 10, 15, 20 years of realizing their deservingness, because life was happening for them, and they had their pain, and they had the trauma, and they had the failures, and they had their flaw disappear, and and through that they realized their deservingness. But until you realize your deservingness, life won't change. Life will stay the same. And then you look at that person, you're like, wow, it just happened for them, and they are so lucky. No, they're not lucky. They deserve. They deserve what they have. And you know what? That can go two ways. It's a two-edged sword. A surgeon can use a knife to save someone's life, where someone else can use a knife to take someone's life. Yeah. So your deservingness could, flourish your life, or it could really limit. Your lack of deservingness could really limit. And you're really banging your head on the wall. It's really, what do they call it when life's on repeat? That movie.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. It's really Groundhog Day. And you're like, how do I get out of this? And you push harder, and you try harder, and you manipulate harder. Yeah. It's until you realize your deservingness, any change that you have is temporary. That's my insights about deservingness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm finding like we've kind of gotten to like a mic drop moment there. Like I feel like I was thinking if there's anything else I wanted to ask you about it, but I really feel complete with that. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Not at all. I think that's that's the message for today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It was really powerful. Such a great conversation, and I appreciate everything you shared today. So, and I appreciate everyone who's tuned in. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Limitless. And like always, you can be part of the conversation. You can email us at askaz@amirzoghi.com and let us know how you're feeling about the episodes. Let us know if there's anything you'd like on a future one. We love hearing from you. So yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. And like you say, Amir, we'll see you in the next perfect moment.
Yes, we will indeed. Thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks.